Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, joined by Brad Ellis. I am Mike Luke. All right, Brad, Arizona NAU, we are going to talk a lot about this show. But the first thing I got right here is I was happy with what I saw from the University of Arizona. I know it's a 38-3 game. NAU stinks. But, Brad, it was more impressive than I expected.
I think it was more impressive and less impressive in many fashions. I mean, if you look at it, oddly enough, I feel like if Arizona had scored 2 more touchdowns and had given up 2 touchdowns, people would be happier. I did some digging, and this is going into my podcast, which will be put up this afternoon. This is the 4th since 2003, the 4th highest, tied for 3rd, highest winning margin against NAU. They've done something in the 60s during one of the Rich Rod years, a 38, and this one was 35. It's also, I think, the second fewest amount of points they've given up to NAU. They gave up 3 one other time and then 0. That 3, by the way, was a 21-3 win in Stoops' first game.
The Mike Bell game. Where you just said, all right, we don't want to lose this game. Let's just keep giving it to Mike Bell.
Yeah, so if you look at it, a lot of these games have gone the way the first half did. Arizona's the better team. The game's a little bit closer. Really, what it came down to is a couple things. One, the 2 turnovers in the red zone, or in at least their half of the field. The de Laura fumble, which was a bad play by de Laura. The interception, which I think was miscommunication. And then that 8-minute drive. And you said, whoa, NAU controlled the ball for 8 minutes. They gained 20 yards. They gained 50-something, but 15 or 30 of it was on 2 personal foul calls.
Right.
I don't know how you only gained 20 yards in 8 minutes, but somehow they did it. And again, some of it was their penalties as well. I get that. But it wasn't like it was this long, grinding drive where Arizona's defense looked No, it wasn't a great drive because Arizona kept letting them off the hook. But it was a very good performance. I'd say, A- performance by the defense and probably a B+ performance by the offense. If Oregon hadn't scored 81 that day, if Colorado hadn't scored 40-something, I think we're feeling a little bit better about this one.
All right, let's talk about the defense, though, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Listen, I know it's NAU. I get all that. But what I wanted to see was more activity from the defense, and did they look bigger out there? And, yes, they did. 9 tackles for loss. Big Bill Norton out there looked like the kind of guy that Arizona hasn't had in a couple years. Overall, I was fairly impressed by what I was able to see out of the defense. Again, I get that it's NAU, but I was looking for more activity right there. Dwayne Aquina's been talking about swarming to the ball this entire offseason, and they just look bigger up there, and that is something that, let's be honest here, we haven't seen a lot of it from Arizona defensive lines in quite a while.
1.9 yards per carry. I mean, again, it's NAU. This isn't the NAU team of, like, say, 2009 to 2016. They're not very good. This isn't a 9-win NAU team. I get that. But 1.9 yards per carry. To me, the biggest concern is they still didn't put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and when they did, they picked up penalties. I think they had 1 sack. They didn't have a ton of pressures. So to me, that's still a concern. But again, it's NAU, so you're not drawing up blitzes. You're not doing anything other than, on passing downs, turning your head and go. So it was a vanilla defensive plan. It was a relatively vanilla offensive plan. But yeah, I needed, at least from a front 6, front 7 standpoint, they appeared stout against the run. They tackled fairly well. They made some plays when they needed to. And overall, the defense has obviously improved. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, but the defense is better.
The defense is better. Now, let's talk about Big Bill Norton. Now, up in the press box right there, up in the press box, the one thing that and I'm curious as to how it looked on TV, Brad, he is a massive individual right there. Not saying that, he's an NFL player or anything like that, but that is something, a guy that can take up 2 blockers, that's something that Arizona has had in short supply these last couple of years. What did you think of Big Bill Norton out there?
I'll be honest, I didn't focus on Norton.
Come on. You know you did.
But the front 4, I mean, they're just bigger and more physical than they have been. When you factor in, all the other guys in that group. Upshaw looks like, from a size standpoint, an NFL type defensive end, bigger, physical. Again, he has to play better. He can't pick up 2 roughing calls. But overall, this is a bigger, sturdier, thicker group of guys up front.
Right. Okay. Now we got Rudy Martinez in here, says there were a lot of Cat fans upset with the score in the first half. Arizona didn't do anything special. It was a simple game plan preparing for Mississippi State. I think there's a lot of it to that. I mean, Brad, you brought up, and I thought of that during the game. There was a lot of that Stoops first year NAU game where it was almost like, all right, well, let's just get out of here. Let's not show anything basic. Obviously, this team is better than that team, but there was a little bit of that right there.
I'll tell you. Okay, for those of you who want something positive from it, they had 4 possessions.
Right.
They should have scored on 3 of them. De Laura's play on that fumble he should never have run that ball the way he ran that ball. That was stupid. And that's something we're going to say about De Laura every once in a while. He's going to make a play like that. But they only had 4 possessions. They only had 10 total in the game.
Right.
Scoring on 5 of them. I think I tweeted out 6, but I forgot that one of them was a block kick. But they got into NAU territory on 9 of 10 possessions. Now, that's also bad news because they only scored on 5 of those 9 trips in past the 50. Again, 2 turnovers, 2 punts or a turnover on down. So overall, again, efficient offensive performance. The problem is, good and bad, no big chunk plays for scores save for De Laura's run. But they didn't give up any either. So NAU was taken, and they were deliberate in their offense. They took a lot of time off the clock. And that's how you get 20 yards in an 8-minute drive.
Right.
So I'm not as worried about how Arizona looked in the first half or the second half because, again, they just didn't have the ball much in the first half. They scored the 2 touchdowns. They should have scored the 3rd. They had the 1 punt play. So it could have been, worse, could have been better, but it wasn't an awful performance when you factor, again, they only had the ball 4 times.
Right. Now, Jayden de Laura, you mentioned him. I'm at the point with de Laura where he's obviously a good college quarterback. There's no doubt about it. But I also think it's fair to say at this point that, you're going to pick up one end of the stick with JDL. You're also going to pick up the other end of the stick. There's going to be some plays throughout the games where you're wondering, what the heck did he just do? And those might come when he's throwing for 400 yards. But again, he's got some really high peaks. He's got some low lows. He's a good quarterback. But I think this is kind of who he is right here, Brad.
Yeah. And frankly, no offense to JDL, that's why he's closer to the bottom half of the conference than he is the top half. And that's not necessarily a reflection on him, but it is a reflection of also the top of the conference.
Right.
I mean, Caleb Williams is possibly a generational talent. Bo Nick's really good. I'm a huge Michael Penix fan, and he looked great this weekend. If Shedeur Sanders plays like he does, Cam Rushing hasn't taken a snap yet this season. That's already, 5 or 6 right there. Right. That's before we figure out what's going on at UCLA, before we figure out what's going on. But de Laura is good. And in many ways, in a weird way, isn't he the anti-Anu? He's going to make some Anu was kind
That's a great way of putting it. He's the anti-Anu.
It's going to be this. And as long as it's more like this with a dip, which it was the other night. Again, I was in my podcast, offensive player of the game. You had a quarterback who threw for 280-something, 3 touchdowns, and ran for 50-something yards and a touchdown. And I can't call him player of the game because he didn't take care of the ball. But that's going to be JDL.
Right. Now, let's talk the running game a little bit. One thing that I think is a little underrated about this entire team right here, Brad, is the running back stable that this group has out here. Now, again, Michael Wiley, we know what he can do. He can run. He can catch out of the backfield. Jonah Coleman certainly seems to have taken that next step. They even have him returning kicks. You got DJ Williams in there as well. You got Rayshon Speedy Luke, Pham. Brad, This is a fairly deep group of running backs out here, and that's another thing we haven't been able to say a lot about over the years.
There's not enough balls to go around, frankly, because I think DJ Williams, the guy, needs more touches, and I don't know where they come from.
Right.
Wiley was efficient. I think he was 10 carries for 50-something, and 6 catches for 50-something, over 100 yards total offense. Coleman had the 3 catches, but the 1 long one for the touchdown, had a couple big runs. He was somewhere in the 80 yards of total offense. And all DJ Williams did was average 7 yards a carry. And Speedy Luke was at 5.5 a carry. So yeah, they're really deep at running back, and they appear to have a line that can run the ball. So that bodes well when you need to grind out some of these games, as well as they're explosive enough. I mean, Coleman out of the backfield on that play. I mean, he's not a burner per se, but you're running over people like that, and when you're making moves down the sideline like he did, you've got some weapons there. Yeah.
I think what helps too, Brad, is that they all complement each other, I think, fairly well. And then Michael Wiley is kind of that jack of all trades, like we talked about. Jonah Coleman is a 5'8" bulldozer. William Brad Allis type running back right there. DJ Williams, like you said, super explosive. You could see why he was such a highly sought after recruit. And then, like we talked about, Rayshon Speedy Luke, fam, a guy that is a threat to take it to the house. I think they all play off of each other fairly well.
I can see a scenario where Wiley and DJ Williams are both in a camp next year for the NFL.
Yeah.
They're not going to put up monster numbers. Wiley might, but they both have that good combination of being physical and fast enough. And again, it's so hard to stick in the NFL as a running back. And we all know running backs maybe become the hardest position to grade, because you look at guys who look like, superstars in college who do nothing, or guys who rush for 600 yards as the second running back at North Carolina stick in the league. But both of those guys have some skills that are transferable to the NFL, and Coleman may be more talented than both of them as well. So yeah, it's a good unit. Again, it's a good unit because you also have an offensive line who can block, and you have an offensive line who could lose a key member Thursday night with Polito getting hurt, and all you do is insert Longy. And again, they can't go much deeper than that, but when they're pretty good 7-8 deep, which is really all you need, barring just a rash of injuries. So their offensive line looked very good.
What's the deal with Arizona high-profile, large people with bike issues? First, we have Dylan Anderson. His bike was stolen. We still haven't got it back. Raymond Polito has a bike issue as well. We got to do something about here. We got to do something about this. We can't keep having bike issues down here in the old Pueblo.
Either we got to get these guys better NIL deals, or we got to invest in more good public transit so these guys can just get on a bus or a van and be off the streets.
Right, for sure. All right. But running back, though, I think there's we've talked a lot about the wide receivers, and obviously, that's a strength of the team. But this running backs unit, I think, can stack up favorably with most teams in the conference there, Brad. I got questions about, a quarterback at times and stuff like that. But as far as wide receivers and running backs and that starting line, pretty well spent.
Yeah, I mean, again, and it's not like de Laura's a bad quarterback. He's just not – he's not Caleb Williams or Michael Penix, or he's probably not even Cam Rushing, but he's above average to very good quarterback. I think the Athletic had something. They had a computer metric, and they had him top 20. And I think that he's fringe top 20, but yeah, he's a solid guy. He's going to win some games for Arizona, and unfortunately, he might lose a game for Arizona.
All right. Now, what does this mean for the Mississippi State game? Because here's where it's going to get interesting, and we are going to talk about Big Bill Norton here in a second. Dennis Walsh right there. A very good point. But first, BetMGM. All right. Here's the deal, Brad Allis. I've been talking, saying take the over of 5 wins for Arizona. You all should be doing that. But here's the deal right now. Sign up for BetMGM. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sports wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app of at least $10, and you will receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Maybe you could be somebody like Brad Allis and get to root for the Chiefs. Maybe throw that in there. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's hear from Mr. Shane Diefenbach.
Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right, now we got a bunch of Back the A folks in here already. We got a Back the A from Noah, Back the A from Dennis Walsh, other Back the A from Keck as well. But Dennis Walsh said something that
can I interject there with the Back the A movement?
Yeah.
I think we all saw Adia Barnes's comments on Deion Sanders,
right?
Which I think is being overblown, but I get it. Did you read the comment section under her tweet?
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand.
About 5 Back the A's.
Oh, were there 5 Back the A's?
Oh, yeah. People like Adia, you need to back the A. Adia, what about Jedd Fisch? I back the A. So, yeah, it's catching on, Mike.
I did not see that. I will go find that.
Go back and look. Great. There's at least 3 or 4. There might be up to 5 Back the A's, yeah. More Back the A's and Bear Downs, at least as of yesterday.
All right, I'm going to find that. By the way, did you see Brian Jeffries try the Del Taco double cheeseburger? And Lamont Lovett.
I did. That was some quality video.
That was, you know what? That's what we're here for, though, right here. Very good stuff. I'm going to have to check that out, though, Brad. Good looking right there. The Back the A movement is strong. By the way, let's see here. I agree with this. Aaron Sepulveda says, Mike, we finally have classic clean uniforms, and then someone goes and adds weird number fonts and an extra red stripe on the sleeve looking like the Patriots. Can never have nice things. I did notice that.
Here's the thing. If you're going to ape the Patriots look, go back to the 70s uniform, the Pat Patriot uniform, and do a red and blue one with the stripe up here.
Right.
Why are we mimicking the new Patriots uniform, which is, well, their only Patriots uniform since that has never played in the Super. It's the worst era of Patriots football since the 80s.
Right.
It looks fine. It's not as good as the uniforms they wore last year, and it's not bad. It's not gradient. We don't have big, odd color numbers that look like they're off my grandpa's phone because he can't see the numbers. There's no fanny pack, even though the fanny pack wasn't that bad. But they're not as good as last year. So much like Arizona's performance against NAU, they're fine. They're good. They don't suck. They're even above average. They're just not as good as they could be.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that entirely. Now, let's see here. Brad, we need you. You're an observer of these type of things. Dennis Walsh makes a great point. Speaking of, I can't believe how big Bill Norton looks on TV. Next game against Mississippi State, Brad, because you will be on the
phone. I'm watching Big Bill
all
Norton.
I need you to do is look at how big Big Bill Norton is. He is massive. He is a large individual. You know what it also goes to show you, too? And again, Arizona's going to have to get there, but it also goes to show you, too, just the difference between the inner crust of college football, your Georgias, your Bamas, your schools like that. Because this dude couldn't even hit the field, and he took up like 5 spots right there. So, again, it's something I noticed almost immediately.
That's the difference between – okay, so there's – old Arizona defensive linemen who are 270 pounds and undersized. Then there's Big Bill Norton, who's legit NFL size, but not an NFL athlete. And then there's what Georgia and Alabama have, and that is literal freaks of nature. 6'3", 305, run a 4.7.
Right.
They're just – and again, if you haven't been on the field up close – it's almost like watching a different species. Especially if you go watch a high school game and go watch as good as Marana football is, what did Elijah Rushing and Will Height look like against those guys? They look different. And it's the same thing. That's the difference between go to an NFL game, sit row 3, and just look at the size and the way they move. It's unbelievable. By
the way, our guy Desmond Roebuck had a very nice game against Salpointe, by the way. 8 catches, $127.
Arizona needs to lock him up as well.
For sure. And by the way, Salpointe, obviously this wasn't a vintage Bishop Alemany team, but Salpointe smashed Bishop Alemany. I would imagine we'll see a lot of Salpointe destroying teams out there. Maybe we'll get to that here in a minute. How about Schuster, a guy that, by the way, how was the Metallica concert Friday?
It was good, but a little weird. So James Hetfield got COVID. We didn't know that at the time. So they cut the set short. They cut it 2 songs short. He didn't sing much the last song. So it was very good, but could have been great. And the sound, unfortunately, for Pantera was a little muddy. You really couldn't hear the guitars very well. But other than that, it was pretty awesome. And it was good hanging out with Shu for 7-8 hours. Schuster
made an interesting point where he was talking about he was talking about Arizona. He says, listen, this team's clearly better than last year's team. Duh. But the Pac-12, top to bottom, is about as loaded as I can remember it. It's very interesting in this last year, outside of schools like ASU, who stinks, obviously. everybody looks like they got talent to be able to win games against any team on a given day there, William Brad Alice.
Again, things have to shift out, but I'm at the point now where we may have to reevaluate Cal in Colorado. I think, and we thought Cal might be in that second tier with everyone from UCLA through Arizona, but we may have to put Colorado in there as well. Again, it's just one game. They've got to make some adjustments, but they look fast. We knew they had athletes, but Colorado looked pretty darn good. Again, I don't think TCU is as good as they were last year, but it doesn't matter. That was a 1-win team a year ago. They look better. I think right now ASU Stanford is probably bringing.
They're kind of the dregs of the conference for sure.
And again, both of them got the wins. Stanford was a different road trip. ASU looked okay in the first half, and then kind of let Southern Utah hang around, and again dealing with the haboob and the weather. Right. But yeah, I think the league, at least right now, 1-10 looks pretty interesting.
Over or under, William Brad Alice, 11. All right. Anthony Gimino put this out there. By the way, happy 75th birthday to Anthony Gimino yesterday.
20 years younger than Chew and about a year older than me.
Yep. But he said, how many touchdowns for T-Mac this year? Let's assume that T-Mac stays healthy all year. Over or under 11 touchdowns?
I will say under, since it's a school record, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. I mean, he's going to get a lot of touchdowns, a lot of them. And so, and you notice that out front too, and you're like, he's going to get a lot of them. Him and Jacob Cowing for sure.
I think a lot of it also depends on what do they do in the red zone. Do they utilize the 2 tight ends more?
Right.
Because they really didn't use them very much the other night.
Right,
and I think that might have been, I don't think it's necessarily by design, but what I think it is I think NAU couldn't cover the receivers, so why worry about the tight ends? So yeah, I think that'll be interesting. But if you're in the red zone and you can look at T-Mac, who's a legit 6'3", 6'4", you can look at
Montana Lamonius Craig with a big couple nice catches.
Yeah,
right
I mean, no, they go 6 deep at receiver. Whether they throw to all 6, I don't know, because they're also throwing to the running backs. But they got some guys they can target in the red zone who are big bodies.
By the way, Rudy Martinez right here. Very smart man, Rudy Martinez. Interesting question. Is Colorado that good? There was no tape on them from the previous year, and with the Pac being tough, it's hard. Here's all I'm going to say.
I don't know if they're that good, but they're obviously not bad.
They obviously
they
have
may be a 3-win team, but 5 of those 8 losses are going to be by 10 points or less.
What I did come away thinking is 2 things. Well, let's talk about it for a second here. Is Travis Hunter able to play 127 snaps all season long, William Brad Ellis?
I don't know how.
Well, I think we're going to find that one out because he's fantastic, and I did come away thinking that Deion's kid's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and we all knew Deion's kid was talented. It was just, can he play within a slightly more structured version of the offense he's played in the last few years?
Right.
Because, again, they have a new offensive coordinator. The guy, I think he's from Kent State. So, again, the jury's out. But obviously they're not dreadful because they're talented. Again, it may not equal a whole lot of wins, or it could. I don't know. Again, but more and more, again, I said that the hire is either going – it's a genius hire, but it was either going to be ultra successful and he's going to be at Florida State in 3 years, or it's going to be a disaster, and it's looking more and more like it's going to be a good move for Colorado. But at the very least, the pub has been great, and by winning, first of all, winning and by looking really good doing it, you're getting even more publicity. It'd been one thing if TCU had rolled by 28. We're probably not talking much about this does bother me, the Coach Prime. But again, I guess we called him Coach K for 20 years, so who am I to say? But at some point, they don't call Nick Saban like Coach S,
Right. Well, they called
Coach Affleck.
They called Lute Olson Coach O.
Did the announcers though? Not often. It was either Lute or Coach Olson.
That's true. That is very.
I mean, every announcer going Coach, and I get it. Clapp probably has a relationship with him because he's a Colorado alum. But that being said, again, Colorado not going to be an easy out.
Right. All right.
I think
By
that's
the way,
for sure.
Brad, It was a long weekend. When was the last time you went to Circle K? Did you go there this weekend?
This weekend, yes.
All right. What time?
I'm not sure which
days?
day. I'm not. It's all blurring already.
All right, for sure. When you become, first of all, you're not nearly as old as Anthony. Anthony turned 75. You are not nearly that old,
Yeah,
Brad.
I'm like 73.
Right. By the way, but here's the deal. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app. Get it, the Inner Circle? I like that. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details right here. Again, Circle K, they show for the toughest areas, the people a little bit, maybe a little bit down on their luck, like Keck. You could find him at Circle K, Circle Keck, or on the other side of town right there. Either way, Circle K is there for the community. All right, now let's talk a little bit here about Mississippi State. Brad, I give Arizona a very legitimate chance in this game. Not saying that Arizona's going to win, but I give Arizona a very legitimate chance in this game. New staff. Obviously, you got Division I athletes. You got Will Rogers, who's still going back from singing, all of that stuff. But I give Arizona a real chance right here.
Yeah, I would much rather have had the schedule flip-flop and had this game at home this year. This being Mississippi State's first road test. Going anywhere in the country and winning, especially, is tough. It's going to be a different climate. Supposedly it's been super hot, super humid down in Mississippi. And I know Jedd Fisch is saying that he'd put their conditioning with anyone, but as we know, there's a big difference between an Arizona heat and a Mississippi heat. That humidity. Mississippi State is good. I think from a talent level, they're probably slightly better than Arizona. But it's not, and last year last year the score of the game was about what it should have been. What, about 2 scores? They were just better. And I think they're still better. But this is the thing where you're going to have to get a play or two go your way, a block kick, forcing the fumble that JDL gave away, and you can steal this game. I would be shocked if Arizona goes in and rolls. I'd be less shocked, but still shocked if Mississippi State comes in and rolls. But I think the line is somewhere between 9 and 13, and that sounds about. I think it dropped after the initial. Sounds about right. I think a 10-point road line in the SEC against what should be middle of the pack SEC team. I would assume it should be about right. Now, I will say this: they seem to have some issues with their secondary, especially safety. If Arizona can protect de Laura and give him some time, there may be some plays there. You're in the only second game of Mississippi State with their new offense, and I like Rogers a lot. Mm-hmm. But there was something to be said about running a Mike Leach offense. I mean, he's one of the all-time gurus. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this is a test for Arizona, but I think it's a winnable game, though I don't think Arizona will win.
So you're predicting an Arizona blowout. Did I just hear this correctly?
No. If Arizona wins, it'll be close, and it'll be because of a few plays going their way. I mean, if I was predicting, I'd probably say if the line is 9, I'd say probably take Mississippi State and give the points, but I'm hoping I'm wrong.
All right. All right. Yeah, there we go. Hold on. My microphone was unplugged there for a second. I do apologize. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that one as well. Mississippi State struggled a little bit against Southeast Louisiana in the first half. The one thing I will say, though, like you said, is Mike Leach was just such a phenomenon. There's really no other way to really put it. Mike Leach was just that dude. And it's going to be a little bit different. But I think what's exciting about all of this is I don't go into games now saying, oh, well, if we can just keep this within 28 points or something like that, and at least I go into these games thinking right now that Arizona's got a chance. And that's what's exciting, and that's where I give Jedd Fisch a lot of credit there, William.
Yeah, I mean, again, Arizona should have the talent to stay on the field with Mississippi State. And we couldn't have said that even a few years ago where they could barely stay on the field with some mediocre teams. They were lucky to be Cal ravaged by COVID a few years ago. I don't put a whole lot of stock into teams struggling in the first half of their first game. This is obviously we all know this, but I'm going to, speak down to you anyways. This is sport with no preseason. You don't get a preseason game. You've got, in Arizona's case, a brand new offensive line because the guy you thought was going to start all week was out. You're breaking in, some new players. So I'm far more encouraged by how Arizona played in the second half. And same thing, Mississippi State did what they needed to do in their game. But I think this one should be a fun game. I think it's going to be competitive one way or the other. But again, it's going to be hard to win on the road in that kind of muggy heat.
A couple things that we found out on defense, though, that I think it's fair to say. Ephesians Prysock is going to have to be the dude for Arizona this year at one of those cornerback spots, obviously. And Justin Flo, I think, is going to have somewhat of a limited role this year. I mean, if you can only get 10 snaps against NAU, that's probably, and maybe it's just saying that Daniel Haimuli and Jacob Manu are so far ahead. I don't know what the case may be, but I think Flo is probably going to have a somewhat limited role.
Unfortunately for Justin Flo, he is a throwback linebacker.
Yep.
If Arizona was facing, I think, and now he may get some more snaps this game because, again, Mississippi State has abandoned. I don't know exactly what they're doing on offense. I haven't looked at their stats yet, but they're not air raid. So they do try to run the ball more. And that is kind of what he fits into. He is a classic old school linebacker, which, much like the traditional running back, is becoming a dying breed in the modern pass-heavy version of college football. 15 years ago, we're probably talking Justin Flo as a first-team All-American. He was on the field 70 plays a game. Now he's 10 or 15 in certain situations.
Right. And that's just kind of the way it is. Now, the secondary, like you said, it's not the traditional air raid that we saw again, with Mike Leach, obviously, but it is, you still have a lot of talented wide receivers right there. I think between Traden Stukes, Ephesians Prysock, and, Dylan Wyatt, and heck, even Takario Davis in there, we're going to find out exactly where the secondary is. Granted, Arizona's got to be able to get some form of a pass rush, but we're going to find out where these guys are. I am cautiously optimistic about the secondary, especially with Dwayne Akina back there.
Again, I like the corners. I think the fact that Takario Davis is struggling to see the field with Dylan Wyatt says a lot about how good this group is. I don't know how much we'll see out of Stukes if he'll play. They haven't said it, but doesn't it sound like a concussion thing?
Yeah, at least that's what it sounds like.
But I'm worried about the safeties. Maldonado wasn't very good, and then he did a stupid play.
We need to talk. Can we talk about him for a second?
Sure.
Let's talk about Maldonado. This is every now and then it seems like, and again, Jedd Fisch is coaching the U of A. I'm talking on a podcast, so it goes without saying. But it always feels like certain coaches always have favorites that nobody can quite understand why they're a favorite. I don't understand the Gunnar Maldonado love. I've never understood it. He's not good in pass coverage. He does some kind of dumb things out there. Gunnar Maldonado never strikes me as being a strength of a team out there. I don't get it.
My guess, and again, I don't know. I'm not close to the team as like I used to be. My guess is he knows the defense better than the other guys. And while we see him not making plays, I don't know how much, and again, I'd have to go back and look at tape, how many times he really messes up.
Right.
How many times that 70-yard touchdown's his fault. Whereas a guy, and maybe it's Isaiah Taylor. Maybe he'll make 5 or 6 plays that Gunnar Maldonado can't make, but when he messes up bigger. So as someone who has coached, I can tell you sometimes you want this, you want a flat line, you not too high, not too low. But then again, when you're committing, and that was a dumb penalty. Again, when I first saw it, I thought he got him with the forearm. He went in with the helmet. You can't do that. You know that now. We've been playing long enough. His entire playing career, that I think targeting's been around since he's been in high school. Same thing. I can't believe that. And I've argued with Ben White about this. I can't believe that hit on Cowling wasn't targeting or defenseless receiver. You guys gotta know you can't hit these guys with your helmet like that. So my guess is this will be, this first half, Maldonado's out. So can Taylor or whoever else they put out there steal the job from him? If not, Maldonado will be back because you'd rather get, consistent C play than occasional A+ play and occasional D- play.
By the way, I just looked at Adia Barnes. This is fantastic. There were 4. I counted 4 back the A references right there. This is very good. The movement is strong. Okay, so that's the now let's talk about Martell Irby. We got to talk about Martell Irby. I'm actually remiss that was not in my notes right there. Rudy Martinez, thank you very much. Martell Irby is an awesome story. Ex 4-star kid out of UCLA, comes here, was awarded a scholarship, and he was all over the field in that first game right there. I don't think that he's going to be coming out much this year. And it certainly seems like the coaching staff has a great deal of confidence in him. A lot of times, though, I'm a little circumspect about some of this because you hear about players that are just great in practice and then they don't really come to play. Martell Irby was not that in that first game.
No, he played really well. He played good. And he could go a long way into shoring up this defensive back situation with the safeties. And, again, good pedigree. If I'm not mistaken, was at one point committed to Arizona, decommitted, went to UCLA, came back to Arizona. And I will say this. I don't know. Did you see the story? And then I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but kid at Eastern Michigan. He is a 2 or 3 year starter on the offensive line. He's a walk-on.
Right.
He finally got a scholarship this week because the other starting tackle gave him his.
Right, which is awesome.
No, it's not. How does Eastern Michigan not figure out how to get this kid a scholarship when he became a starter? They've had 70 players transfer. And again, most of those are walk-ons. You can't figure somehow when was the last time Arizona had a key contributor who went more than a year without a scholarship? It hasn't happened since I think Makovic. You just don't take an extra kid in a recruiting class and you give that kid a scholarship.
Is Brad Brennan the last one that played before he got a scholarship?
I mean, guys play all the time before they get the scholarship, but they usually get the scholarship either that year or right after.
Right.
Bam McCray didn't go 3 years without a scholarship, and he didn't play nearly as much as this poor kid at East. So that's all I'm saying. Good. More importantly, good on them for giving Irby the scholarship when it opened up.
Right. But, but this coaching staff does things the right way in that regard, though. Again, I think they get things like that and they actually, you go about it. If you're going to start, Brad, it's a great point. If you're going to start, you should have a scholarship, period, point blank. Again,
it's one thing if and I'm trying to think of who's, I always use him as the all-time walk-on champion, the DN, Copeland Bryant.
Right.
He didn't get one till his next year, but part of that was because those rules back then, you couldn't give a freshman one till after his freshman year.
Tennessee Titans, great.
I get it. I think it might have taken Adam Austin a couple years to get his scholarship. But I think Brad Wood had one, and that's Makovic. Brad Wood got one before the end of the year. So the fact that this kid went 5 years without a scholarship is pretty ridiculous on Eastern Michigan's part.
All right. Now, Shady Rays.
All right. Good on Irby.
I was talking with somebody that was wearing Shady Rays yesterday and was absolutely fantastic. And here's the deal. He was a smart person. He was very smart, obviously. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 50% off 2 pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. Check it out. Shady Rays right there. And yes, Rudy Martinez, very good point. I believe Fisch was on the staff when Martell Irby committed to UCLA. So there's certainly a connection. I'm curious to see what of these players, these UCLA guys, because there's about 4 of them on the team now that have transferred over here. Which ones pan out? Obviously, Irby looks like he's going to pan out. Tyler Manoa, and then you got DJ Warnell, you got Tia Savea. It's an interesting little group right there of some expat UCLA people there, Brad.
Yeah, and none of them have made the huge impact yet. Savea was fine last year. Warnell kind of had a good middle of the year. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Right. Now, Trayden Stukes, we got to talk about him, though. Arizona needs him in this game. Stukes is weird to me. He's a little bit of kind of an underrated player in the grand scheme of things. Another guy that came here is a walk-on. In the same class, I believe, is Dorian Singer. That's a heck of a walk-on class right there. But Stukes had a really nice game, couple pass deflections. In the nickel role, I'm totally cool with him. I think he's a little miscast when he's a starter on the outside, as they tried to do a little bit last year. Not a big fan of that. But in that nickel role, I'm totally cool with it. I think it fits him well.
Yeah, and that seems to be his role now. Again, I think that other cornerback spot's kind of been locked up by Wyatt and Takario Davis. So, but yeah, they got to see if he's healthy. Right. Or if not, suddenly you're missing 2 starters. And while they may be everyone's least favorite starters in the defensive backfield, there's still 2 guys with a lot of reps, a lot of experience under their belt.
What we're going to find out also is where exactly, because we're pretty bullish on this offensive line right here, at least the starting unit. But I think this will be a really good test this week as to where they really are, to be honest with you. Because again, you've got dudes across the board that can all play, obviously, but you're going into a different environment right there. You're going against a different caliber of athlete. But if Jordan Morgan is a pro, if Jonas Savaiinaea is a pro, if Wendell Moe is a potential all-conference dude down the line, Josh Baker's a multi-year starter, et cetera, they should be able to acquit themselves fairly well there, Brad.
Yeah, I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a good performance. Arizona's going to have to score some points, and they're going to have to do what they do, and that's that ball control offense, quick, get the ball out of JDL's hands quickly, have them avoid pressure, and then establish the run where you can. So I think it's a huge test. I think there's every possibility this is probably one of the top 4 defensive fronts they'll face. Normally, I'd say that USC should have but USC's defensive front looks like a mess. So I probably go. It's probably some combination of Utah, Washington, and UCLA with best fronts, along with Mississippi State. But this will be an interesting test for them. Again, I know it's only 85 and humid, but most of these guys haven't played in humidity. So it'll be interesting.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about OGs real quick here. Now, OGs, Brad, how's your sleeping going? Talk to me. Be honest.
It is what it is and always has been.
All right. Now,
that's
OGs
not good.
Is here to help. What's that?
And that's not good, by the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, either way, OGs is here to help. Here's the deal. Check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. Check them out across all socials at OG's Brands and online at ogsbrands.com. To find them at a local dispensary near you, you must be 21 years or older to enjoy responsibly. Check it out right there, OG's. And no, Keck, you were wrong about something. The Arizona has surefire NFL players on this team, and that's why we are excited, and we will continue to talk about them. Jordan Morgan is a lock to play in the NFL. Jonas Savaiinaea is a lock to play in the NFL. T-Mac is a lock to play in the NFL. We make no apologies about it, Brad. Boom.
No, I mean, Jordan Morgan would have been drafted in the first 4 rounds last year, and if that knee is healthy and he plays like he did as a junior, he's going to be a first rounder.
Right. All right. So, all right, Brad, before we sign off here, talk about a little bit where they can find Brad Allis. And Brad, we need to promise people that on the post game, you will be looking into how big Bill Norton was this past week.
Yeah, you can find me WSR Brad on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it. I should have a podcast posted sometime before 3:30 this afternoon. It's recorded. Just got to make a few edits and get it loaded. And then I'll put that up. Talking a lot about the same stuff we talked here. I'd go more in depth on my thoughts about the uniform and a few more things like that. But you can find me there. My goal is to get out 2 or 3 this week. And depending on a baseball tournament that now is probably going to get canceled, I should be on the post-game show. And I'm going to spend the whole time looking at Big Bill Norton.
That's what we like about here. All right.
I may see nothing else, but I'll tell you about every rep that Bill Norton takes.
Big Bill Norton takes. That's all we want is Big Bill Norton talk.
I basically go watch U of A this week like I watch my son's football games, and that's watching the linemen.
Jacob Franklin, by the way, for the post-game show on the clip, on the thumbnail, we need a picture of Big Bill Norton. That's what we need. We ask for little, but we expect much. All right. For the great William Brad Allis, I am merely Mike Luke. All of you out there, really appreciate you. Always remember, it's awesome. We get to back the A while other people don't get to root for the U of A. We don't even feel bad for them. That's their fault. On that note, we'll be back with you tomorrow. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.